Good evening. My name is Robert Haynes, and today I'm going to talk to you about the Anglo-Saxon period of English literature. The period took place from approximately the 5th century to 1066 AD when the Normans invaded England. First I'm going to talk to you about the literary works and devices of the period, followed by the actual time period itself, and then finally ending with the heroes and legends of the period. So on to literary devices and works of literature of the period. The period is very well known for many tales. Beowulf, for example, the Seafarer's Wife, the King Arthur's Tales, the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. However, most of these tales were not authored by any particular person, so a lot of these things were passed down through oral tradition. One person would tell it to the next, and tell it to the next, and tell it to the next. A lot of times these stories would change from person to person. So, for example, Beowulf, the Seafarer's Wife, they really don't have an author. They were just passed down, like I said, from one person to the next. The Anglo-Saxon Chronicle, however, was authored by one of the great Saxon kings of the time, Alfred the Great. He actually wrote down a very long and epic tale, sort of cataloging the history of the Anglo-Saxons. Much of this time period was influenced heavily by their religion, which is sort of a dark religion that was very similar to that of the Nordic religion. There wasn't a whole lot of happiness in this religion, and so it sort of influenced a lot of the works of the time. Many of these works stress the ideas of having a good life and dying a good death as opposed to actually having an afterlife. Some of the literary devices of the period that are still very popular nowadays are the use of alliteration, which is kind of repeating the same sound in front of a line of a poem. A modern version of that, for example, could be something such as she sells seashells and she sells seashores sells. Well, you get it. It's very difficult to say, but she sells seashells by the seashore is a modern version of alliteration. Kennings, on the other hand, is sort of a metaphor used to describe a person or place without actually describing it as a person or place. So, for example, the whale road to describe the ocean, or the harbinger of evil, or shepherd of evil, I take that back, to describe Grendel. Many of the literary works of this time period and just the folk art or folk nature of this period has sort of influenced the modern Celtic songs we have to this day, and even many modern works of literature and movies, such as Lord of the Rings, is very much inspired by the Anglo-Saxon period of literature. Anyhow, on to the history of the actual period. The period began roughly with the fall of Rome. When the Roman Empire fell, the period was sort of thrust into a realm of chaos, you might say. There was a lot of warring tribes and no real power to keep them all in line. So you were almost very familiar with your immediate family and very close friends, and they were the only ones you can trust in this world. And it's sort of what inspired a lot of the dark literature of this time period. You didn't know what was out there. You didn't know what lied behind the trees in the woods during the night. It was a very harsh and scary world. Very cold time in Europe as well. And so people didn't venture very far out. So a lot of these tales that we have are sort of based around this dark nature. It was very much known for its Viking invasions as well. Most of Europe was terrorized by the Vikings, and England was no exception. They fought off many Viking invasions. In fact, a lot of the stories that contain dragons or things like that are often inspired by the Vikings themselves because of their ships having dragons on the front. So it sort of influenced a lot of literature of the time. Was just the overall feel of the time period, that there was no rule, there was no one you could really trust around you except for your family and your close kin. And that very much, as I said, influenced a lot of the dark and sort of fatalistic approach to life. That there was no use in living a bad life. You must live a good life because there is no real afterlife, and that's sort of reflected in this time period. Anyhow, I thought as a special treat, rather than having me talk about Beowulf and the heroes, I just bring the heroes in themselves. Beowulf, Wiglaf, would you come join me here? I just thought I'd ask a few questions to Beowulf and see if he'd answer them for me. Beowulf, you're a Geat, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just rather curious. Why would you come all the way from Geatland to help the Danes out?
Well, I heard a story of King Hrothgar and his people being terrorized by brutal monsters, so I figured I could lend my expertise on the matter and deal with this beast myself.
Very good, Bill. What was the name of this mighty, legendary beast?
Grendel.
Grendel, okay. Now, you fought Grendel barehanded, as the legend goes, right? You fought him barehanded. What inspired you to fight him barehanded? I mean, why would you take on that challenge? You know he killed many men before he had met you, so what inspired you to do that?
Well, we Geats are an honorable people, and I figured he's an unarmed opponent. Why not take him on with my own bare hands, you know? Since, you know, honor him. That's all that matters.
Right. I actually heard that you dislocated his arm. Is that true?
No, I ripped it clean off.
Ripped his arm clean off?
Ripped his arm clean off with my bare hands and hung it in Herod on the rafters for all the people to see.
Now that's amazing, Beowulf. So you would say your cunning sort of helped you kill Grendel, right? You caught him off guard a little bit. He wasn't expecting you to walk into that hall that day, was he not?
No.
Now his mother was a bit of a challenge, was she not?
Oh yeah, her mom or his mom. I was given this sword that was supposed to be a great weapon of, you know.
Is it Hrunting? I've heard of this sword. Hrunting was
yes.
his name?
Waste of time. It's the worst sword I've ever had. I struck her and it just fell to pieces.
Oh.
Luckily I found Sword of the Giants and with one mighty swing took her head clean off.
Clean off, you said?
Clean off.
Now, I mean, that's sort of how you overcame her, was finding this. Now, what luck to find such a wonderful piece of just metallurgic art, you know, sitting there for you to pick up. Well, you know, I won't take up any more of your time, Beowulf. I'm sure you're very busy. What's your next adventure?
Me and Wiglaf over here are going to fight a dragon.
You sure that's going to end well? I mean...
Well, if it doesn't, it's going to be a good death. So,
all right,
good life and a good death.
Good talking to you, Beowulf. It's been a pleasure. Thank you. And you got a strong grip.
It's all on this side.
Yeah.
All on this side.
Yeah. Wiglaf, you better stick clear. You know, stick close to him. Beowulf, ladies and gentlemen. What a real honor to have such a tremendously powerful character. You know, part of living in Anglo-Saxon culture was to die a good death, and Beowulf, of course, did die a good death at the hands of the dragon. He left his people with a massive treasure. He wanted to bestow upon them something that they would remember his legacy by, and this is sort of the overall feel of all the heroes of this period. They all had tremendous strength, which is shown, you know, by Beowulf being able to rip Grendel's arm off. They were very honorable peoples. Beowulf did not fight Grendel with weapons, as he said. He fought him with his bare hands, and that reflects all the heroes of this time period. And Beowulf is the typical hero of this time period. He reflects all the good qualities of a hero of Anglo-Saxon literature. Anyhow, to summarize things, I'd like to just reiterate a very important time period in literature. It's one of the only time periods that I can say feels like the true English literature. After this point, with the Battle of Hastings in 1066, much of England changed. It sort of ended this Anglo-Saxon period, and we had another period of literature afterwards. And I think it was influenced by many other outside influences, where this seems to be the pure English literature, as opposed to the sort of washed down English literature from 1066 onward. Anyway, thank you very much for your time. If there's any questions or comments, I will entertain them now.